Good afternoon and welcome to Project Community Connect. On behalf of the entire United Way staff, I'm Erica Lewison, Community Impact Manager for Education. United Way of the National Capital Area expanded its Project Homeless Connect in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and to align with its strategic programmatic direction focused on achieving equity for all of our community members, regardless of race, gender, income, and ability. We're excited to work with our partners and community-based organizations on PCC's mission to build community, shift mindsets through personal experience and connections, and provide critical resources at no cost to individuals and families in Washington, D.C. and surrounding counties in Maryland and Northern Virginia. Workshop titles for this week include Eating on a Healthy Budget, Eviction Prevention and Rental Assistance, Saving on Utilities, Chronic Disease Prevention and Management, Starting a Small Business, Legal Services in the areas of expungement and immigration, and many others. In this time of COVID, there is no segment of society that has not been touched by this public health crisis, particularly those households who are struggling to afford the basic household necessities, including housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, and even a basic smartphone plan. In this unprecedented time, and as we continue to navigate uncertainty, it remains imperative that your United Way provide innovative ways to reach workers and their families throughout the DMV. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Tisa Holley from Prince George's County Public Schools and Tamara Mooney from the DC Department of Human Services for a special presentation on connecting families experiencing homelessness to education services in our area. So if you are temporarily staying with someone else because you lost your housing, or you're staying in a motel, a hotel, a campground, shelter, or some other inadequate place, you and your family have special rights. And we're going to let you know that today. So before we begin, just want to let you know to please enter your questions in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will read them out loud at the end of the presentations. It is a pleasure to be here with you today and to bring us this much needed workshop. And with that, please help me welcome Tamara Mooney.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here with us. My name is Tamara Mooney, and I'm the Program Manager from Youth Homeless Services that is housed in Department of Human Services and Family Services Administration. Youth Homeless Services was established in 2015 as the Mayor's response to ending youth homelessness, and that strategic plan to ending youth homelessness is found in Solid Foundations, DC. As a part of YSD's offering of free services and supports for youth and their families, we partner with nonprofit community-based organizations throughout the district to provide a variety of individualized services and housing options to youth under the age of 25 who are experiencing housing instability. Those services are designed to strengthen family connections, mitigate barriers to housing stability, improve overall functioning, and make connections to education and employment opportunities. So Youth Homeless Services, like I said before, leads the city's response to ending youth homelessness through grants of community TBOs, make it shorter, in the district. Those organizations are valued partners of DHS and provides services for youth up to the age of 25 who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And those services are diversion and stabilization, street outreach, drop-in centers, low barrier, emergency housing, transitional housing, extended transitional housing, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing. And one thing that we like to make clear to people who are seeking services is to DHS and YSD, homeless youth is a person who lacks a fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence, including persons residing in shelter or transitional housings, persons sleeping in a place not meant for human habitations, or someone who is couch surfing or doubled up. Here's a list of the services that we provide within Youth Homeless Services. We have, like I said, emergency and low barrier housing. We partner with Bruce House through Sasha Bruce, and they're our minor serving agency. And there's an address at 1022 Maryland Avenue. Any young person at any time of the day or night who finds themselves homeless or unstably housed, being kicked out, they can present at Bruce House without any identification, and they will be accepted into the program. Unfortunately, we have to contact the parents. We have 72 hours to contact the parent and get them to agree to let us house the young person and provide family interventions or case stabilization. We also have Casa Ruby, which is another one of our emergency housing where they can present anytime, day or night, and looking for shelter, and they will house them. We have Maria House, who houses our 16 to 21-year-old, and the young person has to be pregnant and or parenting. With Philip Reed Home, which is for our 18 to 24 TAPE population, Safe Haven and Sanctuary, which is also for our TAPE population, and Shine, which is our newly funded LGBTQ specific shelter program. The difference between emergency housing and low barrier shelter is low barrier shelter, there are no expectations. The young person can come anytime, day or night, get a shower, change their clothes, ask for a meal, go to sleep, use the internet, whatever they want, then leave the very next day with no expectations. Unfortunately, they will have to take all their belongings with them, but they can come back as many times they want for as long as they want. Emergency housing has the same front door entry, so the young person can come anytime, day or night, but there are expectations if they're going to stay there. It's designed to let the young person stay up to 90 days with extensions if they need to. The expectations are that the young person has to want to program. They have to want to meet with case management. They have to want to do something that's going to allow them to get out of whatever situation they're in. We have diversion and stabilization services. So our diversion and stabilization is to prevent the young person, if at all possible, from even coming into shelter. So they will call the hotline, tell the situation, someone will triage them. And if it's possible that we can get the person back home with our services in place, that is the option. If not, then they can come to shelter under our respite. We also try to go into our shelters, being a youth shelter or adult shelter, to pull those young people out that have not been there very long and see if we can get them back home with our services in place. One of those programs is Youth Hope, which is our direct funded program with DHS. So our staff is the one who provides those services. And then we also give grant to Sasha Bruce to provide the services. The Sasha Bruce program really focuses on minors, but they do go up to 25 as well. Then we have street outreach programs, and street outreach is literally what it says. We have a team of people that go out that go out into the street and literally try to find and locate every young person that they can and offer them some level of services. If we have someone can call us in a building and says, I saw a young person sleeping in my elevator in the hallway, they will call us. We would dispatch our street outreach program there to see if they can get them to come off the street and go into shelter. And if not, then they just provide them some emergency provisions, food, water, a ride somewhere, anything that can find as an emergency. And then we have drop-in centers. We have Covenant House, which only provides drop-in center services. The young person can go there. The hours are very restricted, and then they can get whatever service they come there for, but they have to leave within a couple of hours. We have our LA Way drop-in center, which their specialty is speaking to Spanish young people who have the only language they can speak. And then we have Sasha Bruce and Zoe's Doors. All of our drop-in centers, LAYC, Sasha Bruce, and Zoe's Doors, they can come any time of the day, stay as long as they need to, get whatever services that they need to have provided to them, and they can leave. No expectations. If they don't want to get any services, they can come just to simply say, I just want to come in here and cool off because it's hot, or I want to come in here and warm up because it's cold, or I just need a meal. They get what they need, they can leave if they want to. Zoe's Doors is our only drop-in center that is open 7 days a week, including holidays, and the hours are from 8 to 8. So of our housing programs, we have transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and extended transitional housing. The difference is transitional housing is designed to allow the young person to stay up to 2 years. Our target is 18 months, but it's 18 months with extensions. We find out the person at 18 months is just simply not ready to transition yet, then we give them extensions to give them the time to overcome the small barriers that they have left to get out of our system. Casa is our LGBTQ specific. LAYC has 2 programs. They have one that is cisgender, which is stage, and they have Allies, which is LGBTQ specific. And Smile has 2 programs that are LGBTQ specific, as well as Wanda Austin. We also have through Covenant House an ROP3 program, and you see in parentheses it says DYRS. That program is designed to afford emergency type housing as well as transitional, so it's an all-in-one type program. So they can come as a front door, but they can stay up to 2 years, and that's for young people who are connected to DYRS and or the Bureau of Prisons. And DYRS is just Department of Youth and Rehabilitative Services, so they can be committed and or post-committed. And that's our juvenile justice system, anyone who doesn't know what DYRS is. And then we have extended transitional housing. Extended transitional housing provides all the same services as regular transitional housing, but the young person can stay up to 6 years. And when I say up to, that means that if they come in at 18, they can have up to 6 years. 19, 5 years, 24 years, and so on, up until they get to 25. If they come in at 23 and a half, then they have the average 2-year stay, regardless of how old they are past 23 and a half. So if they come at the day right before their 25th birthday, they still get the same 2 years as anyone that's 23 and a half. And through those programs, we also have LGBTQ specific, and it says on the slide which ones are LGBTQ specific, as well as the cisgenders. Then we have rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing is our program that is designed for the young people that may not need any transition or shelter, or even those who are in shelter and transitional, to provide them the subsidies so they can have their very own apartment. So the unit is in the young person's name. They pay 30% of their income, and the program pays the rest. If the young person doesn't have any income, they pay 100% of the income, all the while trying to help the young person get a job or finish school. So the way once the program is ended, then they can sustain it on their own. And then we have permanent supportive housing. And permanent supportive housing is the apartment is in the young person's name, is ideal for it to be permanent. They never have to worry about paying rent. They pay 30% of their income if they have. If they don't, the program pays 100% of the income, but the unit is in the young person's name. With our permanent supportive housing, we have what we call a move-on culture. So what we're finding out with young people, that when you're a young person and you're unstable, you have certain behaviors that you exhibit where some can think that they are mental health barriers. But with it, what we found out is once the young person has a stable environment at home and they don't have to worry about the day-to-day stressors of anything, some of that subsides, and then they are actually able to focus and maybe get a job or finish high school or college and get another job and get a career started, or just able to provide for themselves. And that's our move on culture. Once we see that those barriers have been broken, then we try to show the young person that they don't need this PSH crutch, that we like to call it that, and they can actually step down to rapid rehousing, where we'll give them another 2 years. We're paying the rent, and then they can actually sustain it on their own. If we find out that they can't, then of course they're in there permanently. So many people say, wow, that sounds awesome. How do we get someone into one of those housing programs? Well, we have moved into a system called the CAP, which stands for Coordinated Assessment Housing Placement, also known as coordinated entry, some people have heard of. Prior to coordinated entry, a young person will have to call multiple programs, multiple providers to find out if you have a space. Do I qualify? Get on waiting list. And it was just very dysfunctional. With coordinated entry, there is one central location where these things are done. It's no wrong door approach from initial engagement to successful housing placement. And it represents a standardized access and assessment for all individuals experiencing homelessness in the district. To enter our CAP system, the young person must make contact with any youth provider or any provider participating in the youth continuum. When we say make contact, if the street outreach person finds a young person that they find is unstably housed, that street outreach person can assess them for their housing placement or assess them for housing suitability, put them in the system, and then they can be assessed for housing. We meet on the first and third Tuesday of every month. And in that meeting, everyone who has been put into that system within the last 30 days, they're looked at for housing placements, and whatever housing vacancies we have at that moment, then we try to match those young people into those appropriate housing programs. So Youth Hope, as I was explaining earlier, is our only direct serving program with NYSD. It stands for Youth Housing Options and Preventive Education. It's a prevention program that aims to divert young people from shelter while promoting safe and stable living environments. The objective of Youth Hope is to strengthen and stabilize the family relationships between the youth and their natural supports, support the youth by connecting them to community resources, including education and employment programs, and provide education on the barriers affecting self-sufficiency. To be able, the young person must be under the age of 25, at risk of homelessness, unstably housed, or experiencing homelessness, open to returning to a family or any natural support when possible and safe to do so, open to conflict resolution with the family or those natural supports, and also have a TASE score of 0 to 3. A TASE for that is our unified assessment tool. If I'm not mistaken, I think in PG they use it as well. And that test just, I think about 15 questions where it's just assessing a young person's vulnerability and their history. The resources available through participation in the Youth Hope program are supports to the host homes and households. That comes in the form of grocery assistance and utility assistance. So when the young person is able to return back to home or a natural support, if the natural support or family, the whole family says, I will take them back for as long as I need to, but what I need from you guys is some assistance with my groceries or the utilities because I can foresee all these things going up. Then they'll tell us how much that assistance will cost, and we will pay that assistance for them as long as they're hosting a young person. We also provide new lease support. So if the young person comes to our program and they simply say, I don't need shelter, I don't need any of those things, but I found an apartment and I need help with the application fees and the first and last month's rent, we will pay application fees, first month's rent, security deposit, and holding fees. We also pay arrears of payments. So if the young person is at risk of homelessness, like if they lost their job and they're unable to pay their rent and they're at risk of being put out, they will pay that rent in the rent in the rear. And if they have other legal debts affecting their housing stabilities. We also pay moving costs, local and out of state. The non-local transportation assistance is a bus, train, airline ticket when the youth can prove sustainability out of state. So if they say, I have an aunt who lives in Michigan, and she says, I can come and I can stay with her, I just don't have any way to get there, we will provide them a one-way ticket to Michigan to go stay with aunt. We will have to also talk to aunt and get an agreement signed with aunt to say, yes, that you're going to host this young person and help them get back to self-sufficiency. They also will qualify for our host supports, which will be groceries, grocery assistance, utility assistance, and that's just to name a few. Whatever assistance that they say that they will need, we can also pay those assistance. And then we have local transportation, which is a smart trip card, an automobile repair, gas assistance, rideshare services. And those services can only be provided if it is needed to directly relating to the housing stability. So if the young person says, my job is way in Virginia and I can't get there anymore because my car broke down, but if I get it fixed, then I can get a job. I can go back to my job, start collecting my paycheck, start paying my rent, we will get their automobile fixed. And then with our program comes limited case management, which is up to 6 months. A referral to this program is through this email address, fsa.hope@dc.gov. So the points of contact for the whole program is, initial point of contact is our program support, which is Ashley Richardson, and the supervisor for that program is Michelle Moringue if we're unable to get in contact with Ashley. I'm the program manager. If all else fails, anyone can contact me and I can directly get them into the program. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk about our family services. I'm going to apologize in advance that I'm not the expert in this. However, they were unavailable today, so I agreed to present their slides for them. So within DHS, we also have an array of family services for families that are at risk or homeless, experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. With the exception of rental assistance, all homeless services for families are accessed through the Virginia Williams Center. So anybody, a family that's experiencing homelessness, they can go to Virginia Williams. They will complete an assessment, and then they will be placed according to whatever services that they assess for. If they need short-term placement, then they will go into the short-term shelter. If it's a long-term placement, then of course they will go into some type of prevention or safety net that's going to help them get into permanent housing. Access to those services for the homeless people to be eligible. The family has to be eligible for the homeless services, families must be a district resident, meet the definition of a family, which is an adult with the custody of at least one minor or dependent child, or a pregnant woman in her third trimester. And third trimester means 7 months for those who don't know, and have no other safe place to go. Families who are at risk of homelessness but can stay with support networks temporarily will be referred to our homeless prevention program. There's also State DC. State DC is also a prevention program that can provide emergency rental assistance to households who are unable to pay the rent or utilities due to the COVID-19 pandemic. There are some slight exceptions to it, to being able to participate and stay. The slide says it has to be because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it can also be for any other reasons that's not related to COVID-19. We have had a couple of situations where the person has lost their job and it wasn't related to COVID, but it was during this same time frame. Then they qualify for the state DC program. To put an application in for state DC, you would go to state.dc.gov or call 833-4-STAY-DC. So one of the programs offered through our Virginia Williams Family Resource Center is the short-term family housing, which is the emergency shelter for families. If a family comes and their age is 18 and over, if a family comes and presents at Virginia Williams and say they're homeless, they will be immediately placed in short-term family housing. Those projects are through contracts with service providers, FDHS offering the emergency shelters to the families experiencing those homeless in a safe and dignified building through the district. Each program provides a rich array of supports and service connections, including housing search, connections to mental health, and employment services and meaningful activities for children. Our goal is for families to exit to permanent housing within 90 days. That is not a hard, fast date. If someone needs to stay past 90 days, they can request an extension and it goes for approval. At the short-term family houses, they have an array of on-site services like case management. Case managers work with the families to set the goals to help them obtain stable housing, grow their income, ensure that the young people attend school and connect to behavioral health resources. Case managers assess the families and determine eligibility for housing programs. Majority of the families would exit shelter with rapid rehousing subsidies, and rapid rehousing for the adult program is up to 1 year. Some qualify for other programs like permanent supportive housing, target affordable housing, and transitional housing. Some will exit the shelter and stay with family or friends, and that is a part of the diversion programs. They offer groups and workshops for parents, enrichment activities for the young people, they have Wi-Fi, breakfast and dinner, and 24-hour staffing and security in those programs. Those programs focus on a housing first model, which is having a place to call home is a foundation from which families have the opportunity to prosper. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Tamara Mooney. That information was phenomenal. The District of Columbia provides such a wide variety of services to support children, youth, and families. So thank you so much for that very, very informative presentation. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Tisa Holley from Prince George's County Public Schools.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Tisa Holley. I am the McKinney-Vento Program Case Manager for Prince George's County Public Schools. And so today we will be looking at connecting families in Prince George's County with the McKinney-Vento program. So to our families, to our parents, and to possibly to students, if you are living in a temporary residence due to loss of housing, natural disaster, or economic hardship, you may be eligible for the McKinney-Vento program. And so your first step would be to contact your child's school or to contact your child's counselor to let them know that we have recently been displaced, and for all intents and purposes, I would like for my children or my child to remain enrolled in this school. What can be done? And so then you would begin the process of enrollment into the McKinney-Vento program. So let's look at McKinney-Vento and the federal act that supports it. So the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, it ensures that all homeless children and youth have access to the education and other services needed in order to have academic success. Through the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, it eliminates barriers to the enrollment, retention, and success in school of homeless children and youth. Ultimately, during this time of transition, during this time of instability, the act ensures that a child's education is stable and that his or her needs are being met during this time. So the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act ensures three things. It ensures school stability, comparable services, and the removal of barriers. So when I talk about school stability, as a student enrolled in the McKinney-Vento program, the child has the right to two options as far as school is concerned. A student has the right to remain in the school of origin. The school of origin is the last school attended prior to becoming displaced, or a child has the right to attend the boundary school, the school in the boundary, in the address zone where you're currently residing or where you are temporarily residing. One myth that's associated with the McKinney-Vento program is that because we are homeless, we can attend any school in the county. That is not accurate. As a parent, your child has the right. As a student, you have the right to remain at the school of origin where you were attending prior to becoming displaced, or to attend the school in the boundary. So now, a lot of times families may say, but what about transportation? I can't, for where the distance between where we are currently residing and the school of origin. Well, that's where comparable services comes into play, especially as it pertains to transportation. Transportation will be provided as long as it's in the best interest of the student. So say, for instance, if a child were attending a school where the other children in the neighborhood were walkers, then no transportation would not be assigned because non-homeless students aren't being assigned a bus. However, if transportation is being provided to non-homeless students, then that MVP student would also receive it. I mentioned within the best interest. So say, for instance, there is an elementary school student who may have to be on the bus for over an hour. So granted, in the name of stability, it would be ideal for that student to remain at the school of origin. But because of the time that the child is going to be on the bus won't be able to stop for restroom breaks. It may be an early pickup or a very late drop off. Then the team would come together, not just our office or the school, but the whole entire team, to include the parent, the school, and the McKinney-Vento program office. We would come together to have a best interest meeting to determine what really is in the best interest. Say, for instance, a child is still going to remain at the school of origin, but the parent is working at a distance. And so if the child gets ill, or if there are other emergencies arise and the parent isn't really going to be able to be accessible to readily arrive to the school to tend to the needs of their child, then in that instance, it may be recommended that it's in the best interest for that child for them to attend the school in the boundary. Once again, as it pertains to school stability and things of that sort, the school nor our office would make that decision. We're in support of the parents, and so a best interest meeting would be held to discuss that, and a decision would be made. Thirdly, according to the Act, it ensures the removal of barriers. So if a family is displaced, is experiencing homelessness, then they would complete the enrollment process and would be allowed to enroll in school immediately. A parent would not need to provide documentation such as proof of residency, identification, birth certificates, even immunizations, not at the time of enrollment, because situations arise where sometimes a family is not able to have all of those documents with them because of the time frame in which they had to be removed from one location to now their temporary location. And so those documentations won't serve as a barrier to enrollment. When it comes to immunization, upon enrollment in the school, the parent will have up to 20 days for immunization to be on file at the new school. And then the school will also work with the parents in securing academic records and any other documents. Once again, this is upon enrollment. Having those documents should not serve as a barrier for enrollment. The last thing before we continue on, enrollment in the McKinney-Vento program is done annually. Our program is not a once in the program, forever in the program. Once you're in, as Tamara mentioned earlier, the definition of homelessness is lacking a fixed, adequate, regular nighttime address. So if you are now residing at the same home, and it still may be temporary, but if your family has been there for a predetermined window of time, then we would no longer say that you're enrolled in the McKinney-Vento program, because you have a fixed, adequate, and regular nighttime address for your family. And so enrollment would be done in a different manner. So you would want to complete the enrollment process as long as you are displaced on a yearly basis. So just to give you a glimpse of the families in Prince George's County that are or have experienced homelessness during last school year 21, there were 287 students in elementary schools, 150 students in middle schools, and 169 students in high schools. And so I share this statistic so that if there is a family that is listening, or a family member that is listening and sharing, there's no need to be ashamed that if this is the state, we want to provide stability, that there are children near and far that are being serviced. And it's our desire as the McKinney-Vento program office and the entire Prince George's County public school system to be able to serve and to meet the needs of our students and our families during this time of transition. And so we are able to support you, as I noted, through fee waivers. So fee waivers are entitled, or McKinney-Vento students are entitled to a fee waiver for school-related fees in the event that you're unable to pay. We have vouchers for uniforms. We provide, our office specifically provides school supplies. We have internet supports. And if you have other school-based needs where you're not able to afford them, then you can go to our website and complete a waiver of academic fees form, and then we'll communicate with the school counselor to be able to make them aware that certain requests have been made in the area of equipment. If a student is enrolled in a specialty program and there are supplies, additional supplies that need to be purchased, and you're unable, then you will complete the form and make that request. Educational field trips. Once again, educational, not just the social field trips, but if it's an educational field trip, that can also be waived. Costs associated with credit recovery, and then cap and gown fees can be waived for our seniors. At times, parents may ask, what about the other perks of senior year, class dues, and things of that sort? Those fees are not waived. However, the cap and gown fee for students enrolled in our program can be waived. Before we finish up, I do want to highlight and mention that it is our number one goal to keep our families safe and to maintain confidentiality in sharing. You can make contact at the school with the registrar, or you can make contact with the school counselor. They will speak with you, provide you the space in private for you to be able to share the situation. And one thing that we like to reassure our parents is that your child is not going to be labeled. No one, is going to know outside of the persons that need to know. And that would include the school-based McKinney-Vento liaisons, which are the registrar, the counselor. If you want the teachers to be made aware, then that would be shared with them appropriately. But there's no labels, no like special bus, if you will, for McKinney-Vento students, that it's intended to just be a service for this time to maintain stability for the child during this time of transition. So please believe and know that it is our desire to maintain confidentiality as you address your concerns and present your information. Your information isn't shared with anybody else outside of Prince George's County public school system. So everything is safe. Your information is safe, and your child will be safe as well. So to reach our office, we are located in Oxon Hill at the Oxon Hill Staff Development Center. Our phone number is listed here in addition to our email address. However, if you require immediate assistance and you live in Prince George's County and you need assistance for housing, on this slide, I've included the number to the homeless shelter hotline. So if you are in need of shelter immediately, then please use that number so that team will be able to support you. So after today's session, if you have questions, if you believe that you meet the definition and qualify for the McKinney-Vento program, give us a call at our office or call the school immediately, because it is our desire to be able to serve you and to maintain educational stability for your child and children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Holley, for that very, very enlightening presentation. So now we're at the Q&A section. I'll open it up to the audience if we happen to have any questions. If we don't have any yet, I do have a few that I'd like to start with. While we're waiting, okay, thank you. First question from the audience. Are there any language services available for families? So when they come to you, Dr. Holley, or to you, Ms. Mooney, are there language services available for families, or are applications available in multiple languages? I'm sorry, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. So we do have our applications in only English and Spanish. However, we do have language services through our language access helpline. And the person who is seeking the services, they can actually QR code on their phone, or allow the person that's there to help them, call the access helpline. And I don't know exactly how many languages are available on the access helpline. However, I do remember seeing the last sheet, and there was at least 30 languages.
Got it. And I was going to say, with our enrollment process, we use an online platform called Scribbles. And so that allows for multiple languages, and our forms on our website, I know, are in English and Spanish. If a family were to call our office and they don't speak English, then we have Language Links, which is a third-party provider that provides interpretation services for us, or translation services, so that we're able to communicate and meet the needs of parents and not allowing language to serve as a barrier.
Great. Next question. What are some common barriers that youth and families experience when trying to access services?
The first barrier that comes to mind, oftentimes we'll receive phone calls from parents that say, I'm here at the school and they want me to fill out this paperwork and they want me to give an address. I'm homeless. I don't have an address. And so every child in Prince George's County has an address, must have an address. And so the address may change from night to night. And it's wherever you were residing the night before. That would be the address that would be used. Now, some may even say, but we slept in a car. And so to that family, we would say, well, what's the address of the intersection or the corner or the location on where you reside? Well, we were in the parking lot of Walmart. Well, let's use the Walmart address, and that's going to be your address. I slept on the corner near the McDonald's. Well, look and see what's the address there, and that's going to be the address. So it is a barrier or perceived barrier, but we often explain to the parent that, wherever you were last, that's going to be the address that's on file. And if and when things change, just constantly update that information in the school, and it's fine.
So common barriers in the homeless services system. One in the perspective is a young person will present at any one of our shelters or housing programs, and we will find out through putting them in our database or looking them up in our database that they may be on a parent's lease, or they went in as a family to homelessness and got placed through maybe transitional PSH, and they're connected to that family on that end. One barrier that we see that if they're on the lease or in the PSH, which is managed through our DCHA department, that getting them off that lease is oftentimes very difficult and complicated to even get in contact with anybody to help remove that process. And it can be a twofold type of barrier. It can either be a barrier on the housing administration part where we don't know who the right person is to contact, or there's a form you have to fill out and you have to submit it back somewhere, and you have to wait, and you have to be ready for them to be able to contact you when it's time to discuss it with you. And young people are very transient. They may not have a phone that's on all the time, or young people are not very responsible and they don't check their emails, or they lose a password and they don't know how to reset it. So they kind of lose contact. But in the event that we do are actually able to contact and get through that first initial step, a lot of times also the parent will not sign off on them getting off the lease. And unfortunately, that's one of the things the parents have to do is they have to sign off on getting that person off their lease if they're like on a PSH. If we can show a good cause that the parent is just being willful and won't do it for their own personal gain, a lot of times DCHA will allow us to go ahead and remove them off. Or if there's on a landlord, where a private landlord, and they need to come off the lease, those private landlords are also not very youth friendly, and make the young person show another address or another place or some sustainability or something to get off the lease. And that's also a huge barrier for them to get housing as well. So we try to help them at every cost. We do not deny them services though, because they can. If they need it and they're homeless, we will place them and work with them to make sure that they get what they need to get off this person's lease so they can get to permanency. And then another small barrier that we see in the family system is someone may come from another state, because DC is a right to shelter, and everyone in the world seems to know that. So they'll leave any place to come because they know that we have a lot of resources here, and that we do shelter first because we are housing first. So we're going to put you in shelter, and then we're going to provide you the resources. A barrier would be you have so many days you have to disconnect services from that other state. So they might come like just from Maryland and have Maryland TANF, maybe Maryland SNAP benefits. So we have to have them disconnect their Maryland TANF and SNAP benefits and re-enroll into the DC benefits. For some reason, it's complicated. I don't really know why it's complicated to disconnect those SNAP benefits from Maryland, but we've heard a lot of the times, like, I tried, I've talked to them, they won't let me, I can't, or something of this, that, and the other. It's really weird. I don't know why. So we're trying to mitigate that for them and bridge that gap. We can become a better partners with PG to say, hey, they're here, they're in our shelter. We can verify that they're not trying to run some type of scam, and let's please just disconnect them. So I hear a lot that that's a huge barrier for people, but we try to help.
Okay. And you have to be disconnected for 30 days. Is that correct?
It's within reason. So it has to be 30 days, but I can't even think of not one time when someone had to wait 30 days, because that's what emergency situations are for. You can't tell somebody, hey, disconnect your SNAP benefits for 30 days and then wait 30 days and I'm going to give you SNAP. It's an emergency. You need SNAP now, because once you're disconnected, from my understanding from the Maryland side, is once you're disconnected, like say it's June 15th and your benefits come on the 16th. Once you disconnect, you're not getting those 16th benefits. So now you have to wait that next 30 days to July 16th, and then you have to wait for your DC benefits. That's just that's unconstitutional. So I've never seen anybody have to wait 30 days actually.
All right, very good. Next question. I think it might have been covered in the presentation, but what services are included for LGBTQ residents?
In our homeless services program, we have an array. I can't even begin to tell you how many. And I'm very passionate and excited about talking about LGBTQ programs, because our youth LGBTQ programs are the first in the district. They don't have any specialized LGBTQ programs for adult population. We have them in the youth. So it's just really exciting and great. And they range. We have legal services. So if they want to change their name, they want to go to name change on their birth certificate or their social security card or their ID, we provide legal services, provide medical services. So if they want to go through the transition, like we have a lot of transgender young people and they want to transition. And from what I understand, those hormone pills are very expensive and not easy to come by and not easy to, get the medical people to want to give it to you. So we help with that medical case management is what we call it. So we can help them get the hormone replacement pills that they need to have. And then we allow them to store them where we are, because they have to be stored, I guess, at a certain temperature, and take them. So we have that, which is great. We have PEP and PrEP, which are preventive medications for young people who, let me see, how's the best way to put it? We try to meet the young people where they are. So we're not going to, and it's harm reduction. We're not going to tell you that what you're doing is wrong and is awful and you need to stop. What we are going to do is tell you how to be safe. So we're going to provide you all the tools necessary for you to remain safety of yourself and others, and allow you to freely transition over to what the societal norms are of, I guess, earning an income. So we try to provide them PEP and PrEP to help them for that as well. We have clothing closets. So we have our LGBTQ population tell us all the time, it's like, these clothes are just awful, and who would wear this? And if I'm a male transition to a female, like, this is not my size. So we try to partner with a lot of organizations that's going to provide what they would want to wear in the sizes that they can wear them. And if you wear a size 13 and you want to wear heels, it's really hard to find female heels in 13s from what I hear, and they're very expensive. So we have a partner who provides shoes of a larger size that are female shoes. So I think that's really awesome. So anything you could think of that they would possibly need, we have it somewhere, or partner with someone who provides it. And as you can see, like I said, I just love talking about it.
Well, it's wonderful. I mean, the District of Columbia just provides so many resources. It's incredible. I've never heard of some of these programs before, so it's awesome. Another question is, do your offices, to both of you, do your offices work with local colleges and universities to help youth who are interested in attending college or university or trade program?
Well, for our office, the support that we provide is that when it comes to FAFSA and verifying their status, that they were enrolled in the McKinney-Vento program during their high school years. So we provide that letter for schools. There was recent legislation that specifies the supports that schools must provide students that are homeless when it comes to FAFSA. So we are really looking forward to the trainings and the rollout to be able to support our students this year, especially as far as college and career readiness is concerned. So that is something new that we're rolling out this school year. So there'll be greater supports in that area with close emphasis on our population. Students experiencing homelessness.
And for the district, all those same things apply. As Tisa has spoken about, one thing that we have taken a look to do, because we partner very closely with our education system at DHS, and we found that some young people who are homeless, if you go to college, you're homeless, and you come back to the district for summer break or winter break, Thanksgiving, spring break, a lot of the young people are saying that they're having nowhere to go, and then they're having to double up or just stay in precarious locations throughout those breaks. So we've started a program for our emergency housing, which is how our first emergency housing came about, and it's an SRO, to where you come back for whatever identified time period that you're going to be in the district, and we will house you here for that time period with the understanding of, once you're supposed to go back to college, you're going back. And if you're not going to go back, then you can no longer stay here.
Thank you both for your responses. Are there any questions from the audience? We'll give it a few seconds. How do I enroll in your program if I do not have an address?
Excellent. As I stated before, wherever you last resided, that would be the address that you would use. It's understood that it's temporary. However, that is the address that would be used. And if it changes the next night, then that's going to be the address that you're going to use.
In our homeless services, we have partnerships with our 3 drop-in centers. So a young person that needs an address for any type of purpose, educational, employment, for whatever reason, they can use those addresses. It's not a P.O. box, it's an actual street address. They will assign them like a little mailbox, mail slot, depending on which program it is. And that's where their mail will go into, and the young person can come anytime during the open hours to retrieve that mail.
I would also want to add that sometimes we do have families that are experiencing homelessness due to domestic violence. And so if you find yourself in a domestic violence shelter or specialty program, the case managers there will provide you with a letter or documentation that contains the address that the school is to use. And so some of those facilities, it's not an accurate address. And so when this when that address is entered into the system and is shared with transportation will realize that it's an alias and will know exactly what to do to be able to connect the child with a school bus to be able to keep the safety and the identity of the family clear, so that no one is in harm's way. So for even those families, you would want to see the case manager. They'll provide you with the address. And everyone is still able to be kept safe in this uncertain time.
Thank you both for your answers. And thank you, audience, for your questions. Well, we just want to thank you so much, Tisa and Tamara. It's been a pleasure to have you here with us today. And partnerships such as this one with Prince George's County Public Schools and the District of Columbia Department of Human Services are critical to moving the work forward and ensuring that your United Way can meet the needs of the community, and that together we can provide the best and most needed resources for the region. Thank you to each of you for attending today's workshop. To learn more about what United Way is doing to mobilize and make bold strides until we achieve equity for all of our community members, regardless of race, gender, income, and ability, please visit unitedwaynca.org/PCC. Enjoy your afternoon. Take care.